Our story begins on Geonosis as Count Dooku is dueling with the Jedi duo of Anakin Skywalker and Obi-Wan Kenobi. War has begun here today, all in accordance with the Sith grand plan, and Dooku now just has to escape. Immediately in the fight, Dooku blasted Anakin with lightning, throwing him hard into the rocky wall, while Obi-Wan was left to fight the Sith Lord all alone. Kenobi and Dooku dueled through the hangar area, and the entire time, Dooku was remarking all about how he is unimpressed with Obi-Wan's skills. Kenobi fought hard, but ultimately was defeated, as Dooku put a gash into his thigh and arm. Dooku swung down for the kill, but Anakin was back. He blocked Dooku's strike, and he managed to kick Dooku hard in the face. Anakin held his blade up, and he ran at Dooku, as Dooku recovered in time to counter the strikes. Anakin would manage to stay alive, holding his own as the two of them ended up fighting to the hangar opening. Dooku twisted around, and he caught a glimpse of just outside of the hangar. Another LAAT gunship was approaching, and the doors to this ship were wide open. Dooku could see Yoda inside of the ship, and for the briefest moment, the two of them locked eyes, before Dooku ducked under another heavy swing from Skywalker. Dooku twisted to push Anakin away with the Force, and he made a choice in that moment. He had no need to kill these Jedi, so Dooku held up his blade towards Anakin, acting like he was about to approach the young Jedi and continue the fight. But instead, he slowly circled around the area, leaping up onto the ramp of his ship. He told Anakin he hopes to see him again soon, so they can truly finish this, and the ramp would close just before Anakin could get to it. Dooku sat down as the ship rose up, and it blasted off through the hangar exit doors. But from inside, Anakin made a choice purely on instincts. He ran towards the hangar door, flying out of it with a jump fueled by the Force, and Anakin managed to grab onto the bottom of the solar ship. Anakin was hanging onto the bottom, and inside of the ship, Dooku could suddenly feel some resistance, but Yoda was also acting quickly. He saw Anakin make this leap, and he knew Anakin's only chance for survival would have to be Dooku not realizing what was going on. So, from outside of the hangar, Yoda was reaching up with his hands, making it look like it was him holding back the ship, creating the resistance with the Force. Dooku ordered the pilot droid to take a hard turn away from Yoda, and so they did, and Anakin, still hanging on to the bottom, would swing around wildly before finally reaching up, sliding his fingers into a hatch for a storage door. Anakin was able to crack the door open, pulling himself into the open doorway where there was just enough room for a person to fit. Dooku had no idea that Anakin was here, hiding in the back of his small ship, as he rose up out of the planet. From below, Padme was telling Yoda that they must go after him, but Yoda told her there is simply no way to know where Dooku and Anakin are now going, and unfortunately, they must trust that Anakin has some sort of plan. Padme asked Yoda if he actually believes Anakin could have a plan here, or if he's making all of this up as he goes. Yoda almost chuckled, as that question was very easy to answer, and as Dooku's ship blasted through the blue waves of hyperspace, Anakin had to calm himself, focus on continuing to hide his presence in the Force. It was something he was rather good at, and with all of Anakin's powers, his fear and adrenaline would actually fuel him, making his will even stronger. Anakin could only wonder where he was going. He knew now that Dooku was Sith, so he imagined that he was being taken somewhere awful like Moraband or Korriban, so finding his way home would be next to impossible. But he would soon find out just how wrong he was. Dooku's ship came out of hyperspace in a familiar place in the Force, a place Anakin easily recognized. Coruscant. It made no sense. How was Dooku able to sneak right through Republic security scanners and security ships? It was almost as if Dooku knew about a secret hyperlane to enter the planet from. Anakin stayed hidden as Dooku flew past the capital city and into the dark, abandoned industrial area that kept the city planet running at all times. The ship would soon land softly in a hidden hangar, and as the ramp lowered, Anakin used the sound of the main ramp to undo his own door and slide down the ship without anyone hearing, rolling away into a corner where he could see exactly what was going on. Anakin watched as a hooded man emerged from another corner, greeting Dooku. Dooku would call the man Lord Sidious, and he told him that the Force is with them. He brings the good news that war has begun on Geonosis. Sidious said this was excellent, and everything is going as planned. Anakin listened to the voice of Sidious, and although he was far across the hangar, and although the voice was grainy and gravelly, Anakin began to make out exactly who the voice could belong to. But he was in denial. It couldn't be. Palpatine. And finally, after hours of hiding himself in the Force, Anakin's mask had begun to slip away as he was filled with terror and dread as the implications of everything began to catch up with him. Sidious was leading Dooku into another room where a data table to analyze battles across the galaxy was being set up when he suddenly came to a halt. A feeling struck him, nothing more than a simple tremor in the Force. He asked Dooku if he came here alone or if he was followed. Both of them quickly turned, but it was too late. They saw a robed man dive right out of the large hangar door, falling to the industrial ground below. As Anakin descended through the air, fear and confusion were fighting in his mind, telling him this can't be real, and yet he knew the truth, and he could only hope he was not spotted trying to escape. Finally, he would slam into the ground, knowing the Jedi Temple was so far away, but he took off running towards it, knowing he had to tell the Jedi. He began sprinting into the maze of pipes, conveyor lifts, towering stacks of ore, through the smog-filled air that he was nearly choking on, but air that was also helping to keep him hidden. Every breath was burning, but he kept the temple fixed in his mind as a final destination. He knew that if he'd tried to steal Dooku's ship, the two Sith would have caught and killed him rather quickly, so he took a risk by fleeing, hoping he wasn't seen. But he felt fear, and Anakin began to realize that this fear was being fueled by the dark presences that were now beginning to follow him. And right on cue, Dooku's solar sailor cut through the smog like a predator right above him. Its white spotlight was dragging across the ground, sweeping over cranes, catwalks, storage tanks, trying to find the Jedi, who just saw him and Sidious. Anakin dove under a conveyor belt just as the beam skimmed over him. He rolled, pushed himself up, and kept running. His senses were stretched thin. Every shadow felt like it held a Sith Lord in hiding. The Force was warning him in ways he didn't know how to interpret. And then he felt the presence that sent a chill down his spine. It was a flicker at the edge of his sight, and every time Anakin turned to face this dark presence, it disappeared. Sidious was haunting him all through the area. It was like trying to outrun a nightmare, but Anakin just told himself to keep moving. Sidious felt like he was everywhere, perched on a crane, standing at the far end of a crate. Suddenly, behind him, Anakin's fear was rising up and taking over, and so Anakin finally came to a sudden halt, remembering something. He remembered Tatooine and his mother. He remembered the fear he felt in losing her, and how he turned that fear into anger and focus. So, as Anakin stood his ground, and the spotlight of Dooku's ship shone right on him, Anakin didn't run from his fear any longer. He felt it, he used it, and from behind a nearby pipe, the shadowy figure of Sidious finally spun right at him, red lightsaber ignited. Anakin's blue saber lit up, and he deflected a strike, surprising the Dark Lord with his quick thinking. Sidious landed behind Anakin, red blade humming at his side as he slowly turned to face him. Anakin held his saber forward, telling Sidious there is no need to hide anymore. He knows the truth. So Sidious removed his hood, and Anakin saw the usually charming, calm face of Palpatine that was instead twisted into an evil expression that was somehow almost unrecognizable. Anakin asked Palpatine how he could do this. How could he betray the Republic like this? Palpatine just shook his head, telling Anakin he doesn't understand. It is he who will save the Republic. It is a broken system that must be torn down in order to thrive once again. Palpatine told Anakin that Dooku saw it. He was once a Jedi. Dooku is proof that there are different paths in this life than the dogmatic, stale way of the Jedi. And Palpatine told Anakin he can feel his anger. He can feel the way it gives him power and focus. And that power could be put to much better use in service of their greater goals of the Sith. In service of rebuilding the galaxy with a better vision for everyone. Anakin, still holding up his blue saber, thought of Obi-Wan and Padme. With Padme, he finally had her back in his life after nearly a decade of remembering her. With Obi-Wan, the man was like a father, and although the two of them seemed to disagree more than ever lately, Anakin would choose Obi-Wan and Padme over just about anyone. But Anakin had to play this right. He would let his lightsaber waver, telling Palpatine that he is afraid of what war would mean for the galaxy, and if joining them means that he can stop this coming war, then he will consider it. Palpatine was relieved by this, and Anakin began to realize that even the Sith have a blind spot. For Sidious, the blind spot was Anakin Skywalker. Sidious wanted so desperately to take the prized member of the Jedi Order, the so-called Chosen One, and to bring him over to the dark side. So, Sidious gave a signal to Dooku, and Dooku began lowering his ship in this moment. And now, Anakin looked around and analyzed the area as if everything was moving in slow motion. It was like he was seeing shatter points of how to get out of here. Not far from him, a maintenance speeder was moving between rusted pipes. It was being run by droids, so Anakin decided that these droids would be a necessary sacrifice for the greater goals of the galaxy. And so, as Dooku's ship got even lower, Anakin once more reached deep inside of himself, feeling his fear, anger, and hatred for everything that Palpatine stood for, and he acted. Anakin sprang into the air, landing on the side of Dooku's ship, using a huge force pulse to send it crashing towards the ground. Sidious angrily dove out of the way just in time, but Anakin used the momentum of this pulse to fly to the side, landing on the maintenance speeder, getting a hold of the controls as he began flying towards the temple. On the ground, Sidious quickly got up, getting inside of Dooku's ship. Dooku had hit his head. He was dazed next to the controls, but as he woke up, he cursed Sidious for letting the young Jedi live. Sidious couldn't exactly be mad at his apprentice for this. He let his arrogance blind him, and he grabbed the controls of the ship, rising up to follow Anakin through Coruscant. And meanwhile, inside of the Jedi Temple, Mace Windu, Obi-Wan Kenobi, and Grandmaster Yoda were inside of the Jedi Council Tower to go over some important topics. Obi-Wan was urging the two of them to begin sending rescue ships to any planet that Dooku may have taken Anakin to from Geonosis. Perhaps Cater Nemoidia, Sereno, any of the Sith worlds, but Windu said they simply do not have the troops ready for this kind of action yet. They have no leads on where Skywalker could be, and they need to begin sending out defense fleets to Republic worlds before the Separatists continue their assault. They just do not have ships to spare. Yoda put a hand to his head, truly thinking this over, but then something caught his eye, just outside of the council windows. In the distance, a speeder was headed straight for the temple. It was smoking and burning with fire from cannon fire from another ship. Yoda looked to Obi-Wan, and with an apologetic smile, Obi-Wan told the Jedi Masters they all know who this is, and he promises he never taught Anakin to be this reckless. From inside of the speeder, Anakin would switch on the comms, requesting to speak with the Jedi Temple communications room. As soon as he was patched in, Anakin told them everything he could. Dooku is working with Chancellor Palpatine, also known as Darth Sidious. It's exactly like Dooku told Obi-Wan on Geonosis, and they're hiding out in a deep lair in the industrial sector. Dooku and Sidious had chased Anakin for a while. They'd fired at Anakin's speeder, hit it a few times, but Anakin ultimately outmaneuvered the Sith, forcing them to turn back and try to evacuate. Anakin told the Jedi that they're going to need to act quickly before the two Sith can make their escape, and so Mace Windu would quickly get to work on mobilizing the grand army of clone troopers that was currently stationed here on Coruscant. Across the city, Palpatine and Dooku were indeed attempting their escape in Dooku's ship. They would get out of here, put all of their chips in on the droid army, so the two of them rose up, but above the clouds, the city looked peaceful with silver towers glowing in the morning sun. Palpatine wished that his vision of this war could have come to pass with him in a peaceful office, watching all of it play out. But he would have to take power from a new world. But the moment his ship cleared the clouds, a full Republic fleet hovered there, waiting for them. Heavy cruisers and gunships spanned across the horizon, as Dooku and Palpatine stared ahead at the army that they had built in secret. Inside the Jedi Temple now, Windu stood with purpose, weighing everything, and he would give the order, telling the clones to fire. Blaster fire lit the sky as dozens of cannons fired at once. Dooku's solar sailor shattered into pieces, exploding into a huge burst of flame, folding into itself and falling back into the clouds in pieces. The war would see an immediate shift, as the Jedi could already sense the consequences coming from this action. There would be so many questions, so much anger and suspicion, but the threat had been ended in one single moment, and the war that these two men had planned for so many years would die with their ships as they burned away into the Coruscant sky. Within just hours, the Jedi were forced to present evidence to the Senate, led mainly by Anakin, into the Sith lair. The Senate would react with shock and fear and immediately order a full investigation. Because Windu authorized the strike that killed them, he too became a subject of intense scrutiny, along with the entire council. The Senate banned the Jedi from any military involvement until the full truth was uncovered. The council accepted this without any resistance. They welcomed the choice to not have to fight in this war. And across the galaxy, the Separatist movement would still have some power, but as quickly as it rose, it began to unravel just as fast. With Dooku gone, there was no unifying force. Grievous attempted to lead, but although he was a great warrior, he could not hold together a political alliance like this. Planets began withdrawing their support. Corporate leaders stopped responding to his commands. Droid armies would be stranded. the Separatists would fade as their structure collapsed from the inside, revealing how dependent everything had been on the Sith. In the end, Grievous made a desperate push to regain any momentum. He gathered what fleets he could and launched a bold assault on Mon Cala, hoping a high-profile victory would pull the Alliance back together, but the attempt failed quickly. The Mon Calamari defended their world with the clone army by their side, and Grievous's fleet would fall dead into the oceans below. With Grievous gone, and the truth of Dooku's manipulation spreading, the last remnants of the war dissolved. Droid armies would power down. Former Separatist senators returned to negotiate peace after realizing they were pawns in a grand scheme. After a few quiet months, the war indeed ended with a collective recognition that the conflict was created and defeated by the Jedi. As for Anakin, he married Padme in secret, but the best development from all of this was actually with him and Mace Windu. Mace was so pleased with the young Jedi that he actually decided to spend more time around Anakin, helping to finish his journey to knighthood and beyond. Anakin changed more in the next few years than he had in his entire life prior. The exposing of the Sith was something he was so glad he did, but he carried the mark of the dark side with him. He had embraced it fully in order to escape, and it ate away at him constantly. But this time, instead of hiding it, he admitted the truth to Mace Windu, and that choice shaped his destiny. Windu saw a lot of himself in Anakin, though he never had admitted before this, and he helped him work through these emotions, the same way he, himself, had learned to walk the edge through Vapad. Slowly, Anakin learned that his intensity didn't have to consume him. It could anchor him if he only understood it. And over time, Anakin indeed grew steadier. His presence in the Force became deeper, more grounded and less reactive. He stopped fearing the darkness inside of him and began treating it as something that revealed itself whenever he was off balance, when his compassion was turning into attachment, his courage drifting towards aggression. Training with Windu forced him to confront old wounds, old expectations, and the pressure that followed him since childhood. The Jedi around him would notice the change as well. He became calmer, more patient, mature, and soon would train his own Padawan Ahsoka very well, as she would eventually become a knight, as Anakin became a master. And as the galaxy truly settled into recovery, Anakin found himself living a quieter life than he'd ever actually imagined, but he learned to embrace it. The galaxy felt lighter, and with Padme by his side, he allowed himself to live this new peaceful life. And folks, that is our story for today. One that kind of just takes place, until the end, maybe last, 6 minutes, 3 minutes, whatever. Takes place all in the matter of just hours, I guess, and those are fun to do sometimes, where it's not stretching over 3 years or a decade, but instead rather just focus in on one, section, one day, really, as we go from Geonosis to Coruscant, and that's kind of where it ends. Fun to do. As you may have noticed, I haven't uploaded in like 6-7 days. Anyways, yeah, uploading today. Gonna try to upload again tomorrow, and then maybe the day after that. Get back into a groove. I was just home, Thanksgiving, for family, friends. I was gonna record and do some videos there, but caught a cold and just didn't work out. So, anyways, appreciate you guys. Thanks. Let me know down in the comments. Was I in your YouTube recap for 2025? The new thing they're doing. That'd be cool. Let me know, I guess. Anyways, appreciate you guys. Let me know what you want to see next. I got some good videos coming out. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.